Hello, Orlando. Thank you for being here. I'm Dan Strader, and we have a session today on the next Skype for Business server, Skype for Business Server 2019. And of course, we'll talk about how that relates to Teams and the other announcements here at the conference. But I wanted to start by just saying a couple things about Teams. How many folks were at the Lori Wright session yesterday? Okay, no surprise, most of the room. That's fantastic. I'll be quick with this then. You know, Microsoft's future vision is all about delivering the intelligent communication experience in the cloud. That's clearly our focus of investment going forward in the future. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be a place where we forget about our existing customers or we desert the customers that have come with us on the Skype for Business journey, deploying server on-prem, deploying hybrid, migrating users to Skype for Business Online. And for that reason, we are investing in another refresh of the server to make sure that our customers and our partners continue to have the opportunities that they've had with Skype for Business and Link Server historically. That gives more time to get to the cloud. It gives more time to work through the investments that you have already made. Let those investments have a nice ramp down as you make the future investments into the cloud. So this overlap is really part of the reason that we're deploying another round of Skype for Business Server 2019. We do envision companies running Teams side by side with Skype for Business Server. So even if you are a completely on-premise deployment today, Teams can be something that you deploy side by side with the Skype client. And you might be using Skype in this case for person-to-person IM communication, perhaps for something like your cloud PBX, or sorry, your on-prem PBX. And then Teams could be a place where maybe you're picking up meetings and starting to get more of the collab experience around Teams, having a persistent experience, having search, starting to get these concepts like before the meeting, during the meeting, after the meeting experiences, letting the graph bring in intelligence. So these are things that can exist side by side, Skype as you know it today, with Teams alongside perhaps as your meeting experience. Having said that, we do have a whole Office release. So not just Skype, but Exchange, SharePoint, and the clients. The clients will refresh as well. So these are the dates you can expect. A preview in 2018 and a release late 2018. This will be a very fast cycle. And of course, that's part of the reason we're talking about it today. We don't have the preview builds yet. But with all the announcements happening around Teams, we want to make sure that we have a chance to capture Q&A, have a rich conversation about this, and start talking about the themes of investment that we'll make in the next on-prem release, and some of the guiding principles we'll use to make those decisions on what we release, how it shows up. On client, there are a couple key details here. While this is primarily a server talk, it's useful to know that there'll be a couple key dependencies for the next release of Office Client. For Windows, you can expect a minimum of Windows 10, so that's one big change. And the second is this will be available as a click-to-run install. So you should be expecting click-to-run, not MSI, on the client side. Server side will still be releasing MSIs. Okay, Skype for Business Server 2019. In terms of investment areas, this is the slide you saw yesterday. Of course, with every release, there's a refreshed mainstream support timeline, so another 5 years of mainstream support. With this release, we've been able to take all of the quality experiences, security fixes, and performance fixes that we've built in the cloud over the last 3 years. And that's actually the branch of code we're using for on-prem. So with on-prem, you'll see all of those changes automatically. That doesn't mean you'll have all of the cloud features, but it does mean that the experience of running Skype for Business at scale in the cloud for millions of users and hundreds of thousands of tenants means we've learned a lot, we've built a lot of fixes, and in many cases, those fixes haven't previously made it down to 2015 in the cumulative updates. If they were critical security fixes, of course they did. But a lot of these fit and tuning fixes will be coming down to Server 2019 for the first time from the cloud. So that's kind of an exciting change in terms of how we build the server. There will be the refreshed set of Skype clients. Those will come with 2019. Certainly, if you think about the Mac client, there's more work to do there. We'll finish that story. For 2019, as I said before, Windows 10, click to run in terms of clients. That 2019 client will still work with Skype for Business Server 2015. So you can deploy the new version of Office even if you haven't deployed the new version of the server. That's what you can expect. And then once you've deployed server, you'll start lighting up the new features that come with the new server. This is primarily an IT Pro and voice-centric release, especially focused on delighting the enterprise. For small and medium business, really the cloud is where we're trying to push those segments to. So increasingly, with this next release, that'll be how our story evolves, is this may be the server release for enterprise as we bring up small and medium customers to the cloud. That's not to say you can't have it for small and medium business, just in terms of extra investment. That's the main market we're serving with the next release. So a big piece of what we're doing in the next release is starting to land the cloud services that we brought to Skype for Business Online around IT Pro and around voice to the on-prem server. So if you are a hybrid deployment, even if all of your users are on-premise, you'll start getting cloud value. You'll start getting consistent experiences around voice applications, around IT Pro experiences. And we'll talk about these in a little more detail in the next few slides. And then, of course, improved Teams interop and migration paths for Teams for folks that want to move, for folks that want to have a lot of control around how the experiences show up side by side. There'll be lots there around that topic. Okay. Guidance for customers with cloud intent. You'll see a common theme in this slide, which is regardless of what you're doing with Skype, we want you to be piloting Teams. This is a key point. We think that for many of our customers, especially if they haven't made big investments in on-premise around partner solutions, around enterprise voice, Teams will start to show up with a roadmap that begins to have much of the functionality that Skype for Business Online already has. So if your plan previously was migrating to Skype for Business Online, a good thing to take note of is we will have a Teams roadmap under NDA in October. I think Ben mentioned this was mid-October, but you'll see a Teams NDA roadmap in October. That's an excellent planning artifact to start thinking about, do I want to push my users to Skype for Business Online and then maybe experiment with Teams later, or just do Teams where it really makes sense, maybe for something like replacing Slack as a shadow app? Or do I want to rethink a little bit of my hybrid user migration strategy and go right to Teams, especially if I haven't gotten a lot of on-premise adoption or I'm on a very old version of Office? That may be a way to leapfrog some of that client upgrading and go right to a very new experience. Now, Teams is still fairly early, but it's iterating very, very rapidly since it is in the cloud, since it is built on a modern back-end infrastructure, since it's built on Azure and has inherited these acceleration possibilities that are now really possible when you sit on top of these substrate layers of Azure, Graph, and the modern stack. But we do think there's a key place where folks should be considering Skype for Business Server 2019, and that's if you have a scaled investment in on-premise today, if you'll be slow to moving to cloud, if cloud maybe isn't even something that matters for your segment, maybe you're in one of these segments where it's a defense network or otherwise an internet disconnected environment, this is still an excellent opportunity for upgrade. If you have a deep partner solution, if you have deep adoption, if you're draining out PSTN contracts, SIP trunk contracts, conferencing contracts, this may be something that you need as an option, and we're here to give that to you in the next year. So for customers upgrading to 2019, this should look pretty familiar. This is effectively the N-2 server upgrade approach we took with the last release. So we'll support upgrading from the last two server versions, Server 2013 and Server 2015. Just like the last release, we'll expect the deployment to be homogeneous when you upgrade, so all Server 2013 or all Server 2015. That matches most closely what we're testing in our own development cycles and gives you the most protection in your upgrade experience, and that's why we're drawing some support boundaries around it. It's a little bit of the why. The servers will require a minimum of Windows Server 2016 and SQL 2016. And there's a few other changes that we're evaluating and considering as well. And some of them are big changes, especially for our small and medium business customers. The first is this next release will not have a standard edition server. So that's one big change. And we can talk a little bit about why in the Q&A, but effectively, we're looking at having those small and medium business customers move to the cloud. They can still upgrade to on-premise 2019, but it will be an enterprise edition upgrade. This is also the release where we're formally removing the director role. So that's one other change that's coming. And I saw a couple small claps. That was funny. I thought it would be more negative, actually. So that change is overdue is what I'm hearing. Yeah. So one other big change is, the last release, 2015, we had an in-place upgrade option. You could move from 2013 to 2015 in situ on the server you had already deployed. And we got some really interesting feedback when I started polling the customers on this. What we heard is a few pieces of feedback on the value of that in-place upgrade. Folks liked it for their labs, they liked it for proof of concepts, they liked it if they really kind of got stuck with their old 2013 deployment and never really adopted, but wanted to reuse that hardware and jump to 2015. So those were the folks that were happy with it. The folks that were in larger enterprises typically told us, you know what, that was a good idea, but the thing we actually do is we flatten and rebuild our boxes, we deploy new hardware. We actually aren't sure we trust your in-place upgrade. If we get halfway through it and have to roll back, that's a really hard thing for us. So in fact, what we do is we just do the side-by-side migration where we deploy the new pool and we move users over. So this is one of the changes that we'll have in 2019 is we will have just that side-by-side user migration across pools, moving from 2013 to 2019 or from 2015 to 2019. And that shows up for a couple other reasons. With 2015, we had largely brought forward the components from 2013 to be able to do this in-place upgrade. And that means in many cases, our underlying dependencies are actually quite old. Even things like the link server control panel, LSCP, that's still a Silverlight thing in 2015, right? So we have all these really, really old dependencies now. And one of the things that this side-by-side upgrade gives us, the thing that we sacrifice, in-place upgrade gives us, is the ability to refresh all those dependencies. So we get to start fresh on these underlying systems and really start replacing some of these very old things. And that's also why we're able to take that online branch of code and bring it down to on-premise and use that as the basis of building this service. So let's talk a little bit about some of the new things in 2019. We've talked about a few of the things that are changing deployment-wise. Here's some of the new things that are coming with 2019 around hybrid. So hybrid will be the way to get the most value with the next on-premise release. And this doesn't mean you need to have your users in Skype for Business Online or your users in Teams. It does mean you need a tenant in Office 365. You need cloud rights. And if you have these things, we can start giving the on-prem users some of the same online experiences and the on-prem admins some of the same online experiences that we've only been able to give to the online folks previously. So the first thing we're doing is making a hybrid-aware Office 365 portal. And we can hang a number of different experiences off of this frame. Once we build the knowledge into the Office 365 portal, you can do things finally like see a common view in call analytics and call quality dashboard from the cloud for all of your users, whether your users are on-premise, in Skype for Business Online, or in Teams. So that's now one IT Pro panel and experience for all of your call quality troubleshooting, all of your service management metrics that come from these dashboards, and that can start giving you a combined single view of what's going on across all of your users, regardless of where they are in the cycle of their clients, in the cycle of moving to cloud, in the cycle of adopting Teams. So that's pretty cool. That's something we're really excited to bring forward. Another thing we're doing is we're taking the newest cloud applications and connecting those to on-premise. So voicemail and auto attendant. These are things that historically have been provided by Exchange UM and potentially Exchange UM on-premise. And one of the interesting things that we've heard from our customers is, hey, it's great that I have an Exchange Online story now. I'm still leaving Skype for Business on-prem as my cloud PBX, but I can't turn this Exchange server off until you do something about voicemail and auto attendant. So even if you've taken that initial step on the Exchange side of getting all your users to the cloud, we've kind of dragged back getting the return on investment for shrinking the Exchange deployment without giving you things like voicemail from the cloud, auto attendant from the cloud. So these are the things we'll connect down to on-premise. And then call queues is an example where we can take some new value. So something like RGS, which a lot of people give us mixed feedback on. I don't love it. It works for some things, but not enough things. This is a place where we can start replacing with cloud. So we can look at something like call queues for your on-premise users as a way to get new experiences that go beyond RGS or response group. The other nice thing about this is now, just like that IT Pro experience starts giving one experience for your IT Pros, your users, whether they're in the cloud, in Teams, in Skype for Business Online, on Skype for Business Server 2019, they're starting to get some of these features as a consistent experience. So their voicemail experience becomes consistent if everything's pointed at the cloud. Their auto attendant experience becomes consistent if everything's pointed at the cloud. Their call queue experience becomes consistent if everything's pointed at the cloud. It also means, as an organization, your branch offices that you might be using auto attendants for don't have differences when you call one office that happens to be attached to on-prem versus one office that happens to be attached to online, right? You're starting to unify the experiences now with hybrid deployments. And this is another area that's just as important, but less seen, which is modern authentication. Modern authentication really is a big change from what we've done historically in on-premise. On-premise still has Windows Auth. If you're talking mobile, you're talking NTLM. You're still seeing Kerberos, and this is a chance to start replacing that with OAuth. And again, for hybrid deployments, you're already using modern authentication in the cloud if you're using Teams. It's an option in Skype for Business Online. We certainly want you using it in Skype for Business Online now. And now we'll give you that same option with on-premise. This is actually in preview today as a public preview, but you can still go through the preview program and get extra attention, I believe. Natasha has a talk on this later this week. It's actually on Wednesday. I'll show when that's happening. But that'll be a really in-depth session. I think it's 400 level, so you can really get deep with the questions. The key, though, is we want to move from this middle state of having things like auto-discover pointed at on-premise and a user being in a cloud and things like your client logging into on-prem before it gets redirected to the cloud, and it's going through multiple different auths, and then that's just the Skype side. Exchange has the same thing. So worst case, your client is experiencing 4 different authentication touch points and potentially 3 different types of authentication. So we want to clean all that up. The long-term vision is unify all of this around modern authentication with AAD as the STS. And then, of course, the other thing we're doing is making sure that there's a great path to Teams with hybrid. Something that's certainly true today is if you bring your users to Skype for Business Online, we will be able to, even without an upgrade to 2019, do things like discover your configuration in the cloud and start bringing that configuration over to Teams and matching that experience in Teams. We could look at bringing things like contacts over, bringing things like call queue settings over, bringing things like how you've configured conference policies over. We can migrate your meetings for you potentially. So these are things that become more powerful as soon as you bring your users to Skype for Business Online, and it's something that we can take care of for you. All you have to do is hit the migration switch and we'll start bringing these things over. With Skype for Business Server 2019, we'll also give you some of those same tools and controls and power. So without an upgrade, bring your users to online and we can help migrate them. With an upgrade, we can also help do it right from the on-prem side. But that'll be something that the IT admin will be more burdened with, right? Having said that, our vision is to protect the investments you've made. And hybrid is one of the ways that we can make sure you have paths forward while still getting the value that you have on premise, while we're building our features up in the cloud to go all the way across our full set of partners, solutions, and experiences.
Quick question on that.
Yeah.
Is it going to have to be hybrid, or are you going to be able to go on-prem only, or will you have to have
Yeah, so the question was, do I have to have hybrid to deploy Skype for Business Server 2019? No, it certainly works as an on-prem only release. Yeah. The most value will come from hybrid, but it doesn't have to be hybrid. Okay. Another one of the migration tools, meeting migration service. This is not so much about on-prem vNext or on-prem 2019, but this is a service that already exists in the cloud and helps you update meetings. For example, if you're adding PSTN conferencing to a user, we want to replace those meetings with dialing coordinates. Or if you're moving a user from on-premise to the cloud, we want to make sure we update those meetings and have a nice, smooth way for the users and the attendees to join that new online meeting. Well, for Ignite, the new update that we have is this now works with Exchange Server on-premise. So, thank you. A couple people were waiting for that. This is something that's in public preview. So, Skype Preview is the place to go get this. And I'll share the information on Skype Preview in just a moment. Okay, so the preview programs and what you can expect. Available now, hybrid modern auth, meeting migration service with Exchange on-premise. Late 2017, really starting now through December, we're going to be doing customer surveys for on-prem server, or for Skype for Business Server 2019. If you join the preview, even if you're not taking advantage of one of the preview programs, and if you actually go to the trouble to build a login and log in on behalf of your organization and complete the NDA, we will include you in the list of people that we survey. So if you jump on this now and you get into preview, you go through the NDA, we can actually start surveying you and getting direct feedback on some of the features that we're considering building, and you have a chance to vote through those surveys on what you'd like to see. And that'll help us decide what we're investing in. So that's a really important way to give us direct feedback in this vNext process. And then mid-2018, we'll start previewing the next server build. The Skype preview program will still be the place to get the earliest releases of the next server, but we'll do a public beta later in the year as well in 2018. Okay, so we've talked about a number of hybrid value adds. It turns out at Ignite, we're talking about a few of them. So these won't be focused as much on on-premise, since we don't have the on-prem server out yet. We don't have the preview out yet. But these are great sessions to go to learn about what's going to be there once the server does land, and what type of experiences you can start getting for your on-premise users. I'll give folks just a couple seconds to capture that. Okay. So again, summarizing how we want to have folks think about starting their cloud journey. Start with Teams regardless of your current state. Start exploring it, start reacting to it. That's an important way to know what's out there. With Teams, start with meetings in IM side by side with Skype for Business. Move to voice as features are added. That's kind of the broad strokes plan. You'll see us lighting up capabilities in Teams that more or less match that cadence as well. They'll start with a deepened meeting experience and then a deepened enterprise voice or cloud voice experience. Use Server 2019 to extend your timeline, to add value, consistent experience, and hybrid value. And then understand and plan for the key dependencies. You know, we're just sharing some of the earliest dependencies, like the OS dependencies, the topology dependencies, the client dependencies. But as we get into the preview cycle and we get into spring, and especially as we get right before Enterprise Connect, we'll have a whole nother round of information on this that goes more into the 300 level, maybe even to the 400 level depth of content. And then, of course, as always, use Teams fast track in the existing assets like Skype Operations Framework. So these things will still be durable and will still be there, whether you're using Skype for Business Online or Teams as a way to help get you into the cloud. Okay, so we're about to get into a huge set of Q&A. I love that we have a giant audience, and we can take a whole wide range of questions. So anything's fair game. I mean, I'd love to stay mostly focused on server, but we can talk about anything that's been announced and how it relates to server, either the existing server or next server. Yes?
So for voicemail, you're pretty much going to have cloud. Like you won't have an option to go Exchange on-prem and use voicemail there.
So the Exchange plan has not been announced yet, but for sure the question was, and let me do a summary before we take lots of questions, but the question was, for Exchange, what's the story around voicemail? So the first story is, we do want to, for cloud-connected customers, get you to the cloud experience. So whether your users are on-prem or cloud, we want you using cloud voicemail and auto attendant. That's clear. That helps us out in terms of a way forward to add value for pure on-prem customers that do not have any chance of cloud or are not able to pick up hybrid or are using something special about Exchange today, that story will emerge as Exchange discloses. Their story is probably going to show up more around Enterprise Connect. The reason that we wanted to do a Skype talk today is we have so many announcements around Teams. We wanted to make sure we had a chance to reassure you what we're doing with Skype. But at a minimum, what you can expect is there'll be some sort of coexistence story. So minimally, we'll find some way to make sure that for on-prem customers, there's some options. Okay, so for Skype, and we'll do a ton of questions in a second, but please start lining up at the microphones. That way we can get them on the recording. And I'll invite Matt Landis up to help me with the Q&A. Matt, you can kind of come up right now. Matt is from Landis Technology, one of our MVPs. We have a ton of MVPs in the room, which is awesome. How about a round of applause for Matt? Thanks for being here, Matt. Yeah. So, just in summary, before we get to all the Q&A, for customers who are not yet ready to move to the cloud, who don't have cloud intent, or have deep investments in on-prem, Skype for Business Server 2019 is there. Skype for Business Online is still there for folks that are already migrating or getting good value from that. These are things that are durable investments that we want to protect for our customers. Skype for Business 2019 will have a subset of our cloud experiences around IT Pro, voice, security, and compliance. And Teams will be an option that can work side by side with Skype for Business on-prem if you want to start exploring what that means for your company. With that, we'll get to the Q&A. And Matt, you can help me with repeating the questions or moderating the questions. So let's start with this mic.
Cheers, thanks. So I'm hoping you can shed some light on what the story is with CCE. So in Australia, we don't have PSTN calling yet. We've done a lot of CCE deployments, invested a lot in that. How does that fit into the story with what's happening with Teams and Skype for Business?
Yeah.
All right, so talking about Cloud Connector Edition and how that all ties into Skype for Business Server 2019.
And Teams, I guess, as well. So for on-prem Skype for Business, the current Cloud Connector Edition will be the next Cloud Connector Edition. In other words, there's no change. If you're in Skype for Business Online using Cloud Connector Edition, you don't need another version. If you upgrade with 2019 and you have Cloud Connector Edition side by side with that, that will coexist with 2019. So your Cloud Connector Edition stays, does not disappear, and does not need an upgrade. The next piece is for Teams. The story could be a little bit different. Our intent with Teams, and even our intent with Skype for Business Online, was ideally what we do is we find some way where you can bring your trunk directly to our cloud. The reason that we have Cloud Connector Edition is we didn't achieve that vision yet, right? So with Teams, that may be a place where we're able to more directly achieve that vision of allowing you to have your SBC point directly at our cloud and have that be the only piece of infrastructure you need. So we'll see, but that's the plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question here?
Yes. Regarding .NET upgrade support, this has been a challenge in the past, continues to be a challenge with on-prem versions today. What is the story? What are you guys doing with having better support, better documentation around it? Because in the past year, we've seen an upgrade comes out, 3 days later, there is a post by the Exchange team, hey, it's not supported. Skype team, hey, it's not supported. Hold off. But what are we doing going forward on that?
Yeah, so I think the question was, I heard at least one question, which was, what are we doing about making support clear for our customers, especially for on-prem, but maybe also for cloud? And was there a second question that we heard? I think that's what I heard. So with 2019, it's true that if you think about the 2015 release, we released 2015, we put out a fair amount of documentation, and then we kind of stopped, right? And we focused a lot of effort in online, and that created some confusion because some of that documentation from engineering really wasn't complete. With 2019, we have in place a set of resources to help us refresh that. So the nice thing is every time we do another release, we get to go through the cycle of refreshing documents. So that is a chance for us to make that better, and that's certainly an activity that we will be spending time on. Thank you. Yep. And Matt, maybe you can steer which microphone we use.
Okay.
So, a quick question about the pricing plans for Teams. You talked about, I guess the read of it is what's available in Skype Online today from a CSP standpoint for PSTN calling, for Cloud PBX will become calling plan and all whatever the new terms are. When are those going to be available in Teams? What countries are they going to be available in? And is there going to be a margin for partners to be able to actually sell those and make money on them?
Okay. So
PSTN calling is brand new.
I can repeat
so
the three
go ahead and
questions.
take it.
all right, so pricing for PSTN with Teams or calling plans with Teams, and what are the opportunities for folks that want to help selling. Pricing is not something that I will announce or speak to today, but there is a piece of that question that I can take, which is in terms of country coverage and the plan and what it looks like compared to Skype for Business Online. What we want to do with Teams is not reinvent all that stuff as much as take the Skype, PSTN, and dialing experiences and bring them to Teams. So what you can expect in terms of worldwide coverage and in terms of where we are in market and in terms of our pricing structure can be best predicted by what we're already doing with Skype for Business Online. Thank you.
And sorry, I know you said you couldn't mention when pricing will be available. Are you able to speak to if partners are going to actually be able to make money off of it?
I don't have that information.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, why don't we get the mic on the far left here?
Hi. What will be the upgrade story for telco who are hosting multi-tenant Skype for Business 2015 now, and and especially multi-tenant support and coexisting with Office 365?
So you'll have to help me, Matt. I only heard half of that.
I'll say that was the same with me, so maybe if you want to.
Okay, so there are many telcos in the world who are hosting Skype for Business in multi-tenant setup today.
Okay.
2015.
Right.
So what will be the upgrade story for them, and how they will coexist with Office 365?
Right.
Yep.
So I think the question I heard is, what's the story around something like a hosting pack? We had a previous release that included a notion of using the on-prem server with a sort of thin multi-tenant structure that could be picked up by third-party partners. For sure, that plan does not move forward with 2019. So that is something that we have to resolve and work with you on what makes sense. But I can tell you that the hosting pack does not re-emerge in Server 2019. So that part is clear.
It's a good question. Why don't we go right here in the center?
Can you share any details about the feature of monitoring and reporting, including the fate of some of our on-prem tools like CQD, Statistics Manager, and Report Server?
Yeah. So CQD, StatsMan, Reporting Server. So with CQD, cloud is the place where that gets the best refresh. That's already refreshed in the cloud. So connecting to hybrid, if you can get to hybrid, is the way to get the latest CQD experience. StatsMan, we do plan to do an update for. The update will be less around the UI. It'll still be a web download, we think. So think of it still as kind of like a resource kit style web download tool. But we'll make sure that the underlying performance counters that we add have the ability to be reflected in StatsMan. And we might even do some underlying changes to make it more flexible later so we don't have to keep re-releasing it anytime we do a change. Thank you.
All right, maybe on the far right.
Hi, I have two questions, and one is more of a clarification. But for auto attendance and is that going to require Exchange on-prem? And the other one is, in Skype for Business 2015, it still requires TLS 1.0 and 1.1. Will that go away?
Okay, great. So two interesting different questions. The first question is for Exchange, or rather for Auto Attendant and Cloud Voicemail, do I still need Exchange or Exchange on-prem? You don't. So you can actually, hypothetically, you could even use a completely different mail service, hypothetically. The other question is, what about maybe for payment card industry regulated customers? What's happening around TLS 1.0 and 1.1 and 1.2? So what we've heard from our PCI customers and other customers that are just looking at best practices is we want to be able to support our servers in a configuration where TLS 1.0 and 1.1 is disabled. We are actually working on that for 2015, and that will be for sure part of 2019 as well. So you will be able to run with the servers set to have Windows S channel config where TLS 1.0 and 1.1 is disabled for the registry settings on both client and server, leaving only TLS 1.2, and that'll be fine. And you'll see that with, I think we're targeting CU7 for the release of that in 2015. If we can do it sooner, we will.
There you go.
Thank you.
And may I ask a question?
Yeah.
So just a clarification, the link control panel and Silverlight, is that going away?
It's going away. So we will still have a control panel. It will not be Silverlight.
There you go. All right.
Thank you. Can you give us an update about the server and cloud APIs and the tab program for Teams and Skype?
Okay. I think the question is around APIs for on-prem, cloud, Teams. So this is actually good. I didn't include a platform slide for on-prem server 2019, but this is an important area for our customers and our shared customers that are using the platform.
Especially the cloud.
The first thing, what was that?
Especially the cloud.
Especially the cloud, okay.
Cloud API.
Well, the cloud will have an enhancement of the APIs that we should see in the October roadmap. So that will be the place where I think we're going to announce. So look for some more detail there. For on-prem, I do want to spend a little bit of time on this. I think there's probably some questions that haven't been asked that are still important for our partners. And the first thing to know is we're trying to avoid any breaking changes in the on-prem server platform APIs. So things like UCWA, UCMA, we'll try and avoid breaking changes there. For UCMA, we'll have to do a couple underlying dependency updates, things like .NET, et cetera. And we're going to fix a few of the bugs there as well. But in principle, we're trying not to change much on the on-prem APIs to make sure that our current partner ecosystem with 2015 can be protected for customers upgrading to 2019. So that's the meta point for platform on-premise. Thank you.
So related to web APIs for Skype Online, not really anything to announce new here, but in October we'll see something.
That's right. Not in this talk. I don't know that we have coverage for it at Ignite currently, but with the Teams roadmap in October, that would be an excellent place to look for it.
See it. All right. Okay. Right here.
Good morning. So one of the challenges I've had, excuse me, when deploying Skype in businesses that are used to the consumer version of Skype, there's no migration path. You can't even export the contacts from the free version or the consumer version into the Skype for Business, which makes users have to run two different clients. Not to mention the Skype for Business looks completely different than the consumer version.
Yeah, it really does now.
Is there any sort of path or any way we can migrate?
Yeah. Do we have any partners doing this, Matt?
I was wondering if any MVPs have any tools to do that. Just kind of thinking there might have been someone that's doing it, but apparently they're not here if they are. So
the question was, with Skype Consumer, can we build some sort of migration path or better together story? Yeah, it's something we're looking at. I'd want to gauge the broader interest in the room and through things like our Skype preview survey before saying that that is something we'll resource. But it's certainly an ask that's come up and I've heard before. So it's something that's on the list, but it's not in the top section of the list right now. So I think that, what I'd love to do is give that opportunities to partners. I think it's an important area, but it's probably not an area we will tackle at release. I think that's the way to think about it for now. We can always add features after we release, but I think at release, we won't do anything at release. Thank you.
Far left.
Hello. If I move my users to the cloud and give them Teams, can they use PSTN on-prem connectivity? So the numbers that already have on-premises.
Yeah, so the question was, if I move my users to Teams, can I use on-prem SIP trunk and on-prem numbers? I think the best way to think about that question is, what can you do with Skype for Business Online today, right? So with Skype for Business Online, there is a path if you pick up Cloud PBX to use on-prem SIP trunks with Cloud PBX. We're going to enhance that experience by removing the need to have an on-prem deployment. So that's our vision, is to have something like a bring your own trunk model where you can connect that directly to Teams. You'll still need some sort of licensing to have Teams be like a Cloud PBX experience. But if you have that, I think there's no reason that you couldn't have numbers from on-premise providing DIDs for Teams. Yeah.
So that's, if you were listening closely, that was really, for people currently using CCE, that
Correct.
is an
Yeah.
excellent, incredible.
Big change.
Yeah, it's great.
Hello. We're struggling trying to deploy Skype phones with the BTOE client, and how is that, with all the modern changes in authentication, is there going to be more of a pass-through and less user intervention in the client?
So is this around hardware phones specifically? Yeah.
So maybe the question is, bringing the BTO into the client to make it just a seamless experience as opposed to being by the vendors.
Right. Yeah, so device management and desk phone experience are certainly areas that we have been looking at for server vNext. This is an area where we think that we can do more and we need to do more. One of the ways that we will make progress on this is on the refresh devices that are cloud focused. And then we need to think about, okay, if that's the first place we make progress, how do we come back to this big install base we have and find some ways to improve satisfaction of the IT pros that have to manage these things, that have made an investment and that want to protect that investment. And so the way that we're going to proceed is we're going to land the cloud device management experience first. And just like with 2019, there's options to have these connectors to the cloud that can bring that cloud value to on-prem. We'll work with our partners to explore if we can take that online device management story for the next round of devices and find a way to bring in the existing set of deployed devices into that same management framework. But it's very much an area where we don't yet have a plan, but we have a set of principles. Yeah, thank you.
All right, maybe we'll just sweep to the right here, and maybe Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, so quick question around roles. You mentioned standard edition is going to be going away,
right,
and director role is going away.
Right.
In light of all the Teams news that we've had, I just had to be the guy to ask. Persistent chat, is it officially gone then?
The persistent chat is not shipping with Server 2019.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, hello. My question is, how is this unified communication that you've added these features to Teams, and for the user experience or user that's on premise with enterprise voice, that now if they're using maybe in a third-party contact center, they've now got this context switching between apps, and what's the anticipation for that experience, or why weren't these features added into Skype for Business versus building out another tool to do some of the same overlapping things?
Right. So let me see if I can repeat the question. I think the high order question is, why haven't we built Contact Center directly into our clients as a first party experience?
No. It's how is this unified communication, where you're making another tool now to do some of the same features and functionalities that you have, and trying to.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So I mean, I'm not sure I come at the question the same way you're coming at it, but let me see if I can rephrase. Like, we have a Teams client in the cloud. That's a totally new experience. It's a hub for all of Office 365. It's more than just Slack compete, right? In fact, it's kind of different than the value proposition of Skype. We have Skype on-premise, we have Skype online. With Skype on-premise, you certainly can have things like partner contact centers. We want to protect those investments. We also want to make sure that those partners have opportunities in the cloud with Teams. And the way we do that is incremental, right? We have to take some phases to get there. The first phase we need to provide is a rich set of cloud APIs that attach to Teams that then give partners this opportunity. And then partners can follow through and bring those experiences to Teams. And I think it's fair to say in the short term, probably in the midterm, in fact, I think it's fair to say we just don't have plans to build a native, rich contact center. So we're going to leave that to partners, and the way we help them succeed is giving them the cloud APIs.
But for the on-premise user using enterprise voice, if they want to use Teams as well, they're going to have to switch back and forth between the two apps.
Yeah, so the question is, but hey, if I want to use Teams now, and I have all this stuff deployed, the user's going to have to switch back and forth. Absolutely. So that's why we're supporting side-by-side. Side-by-side does mean side-by-side, right? Like, you have to context switch, but it's there, it's available, as opposed to having to be one or the other and ransom what the user gets to use.
Far right.
Will the Skype for Business Server 2019 Skype web app require a plugin still, or are there plans to have pluginless meeting joins for web clients?
So I think the question is web plugin for, yeah, so there still is a web plugin requirement for Skype for Business Server 2019. We are developing a new modern experience for meetings in the cloud, and that modern meeting experience in the cloud will include WebRTC and will reduce that need with the cloud attached meetings. This is one of the reasons that the message today is, for meetings, if you haven't adopted, start looking at evaluating and focusing on Teams as the place to get that modern experience, because it makes that problem go away. Thank you.
Right. First of all, thank you for providing the most useful information of any session I've gone to so far.
Thank you for that.
As far as SBAs go, currently 2015 is backwards compatible with 2013 SBAs. What is the plan for 2019, and are there any plans for cloud-based deployments for that scenario?
Yeah, so around SBAs, Survivable Branch Appliance, we do think we will need to support coexistence. The customers that have deployed SBAs widely are exactly the type of on-prem customers that are likely to be slower to the cloud or will stay on-premise. So we know we need some sort of coexistence story there. We don't think we re-release the SBA, so this will be more like the CCE story. In terms of using SBAs with the cloud, that's a really interesting idea, and we've heard it from a couple folks, but we haven't heard it enough to be the thing that we're building now. So that's still a good idea, but it's way deep in the backlog. So I don't know that we'll ever follow through on SBAs as a cloud-attached survivable branch appliance thing. I wouldn't expect that, but I wouldn't say it's completely dead either. Thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
Are there any plans for response groups in version 2019, and any upgrades to response groups? I know you talked about the cloud version, but anything from the on-premise?
So the question was response groups and what's the upgrade?
My favorite piece of Skype for Business, response groups.
Oh,
What's going to happen?
I don't believe you. So with response groups, the answer is really simple. The option is, if you're hybrid, call queues is the way to go. If you're not hybrid, you get what's there already.
So nothing new? Nothing new?
Nothing new. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just stays there and does what it does now. So.
Okay, I have two questions. One is, today's monitoring of the quality of calls within Skype for Business Online is done primarily, most of your partners are using the SDN application server role to fill in some of the gaps to get some of the real-time data and, of course, needing the 2016 clients to do so. Does that go away with Skype 2019, or is there another methodology to collect that call detail on-prem as you're going to the cloud or as you're on-prem?
Yeah. So the question is, if we want more information that's provided, that then is provided through interfaces like Cloud Analytics, CQD, CQD on-premise, or the QoE database on-premise, how do we get that? SDN is a way historically we've done that in 2015. And even with our SDN API, what we found is, in many cases, partners were building managed applications to get even more data. So a good example of this is Event Zero actually went and built their own dip and parsing through the SIP stream to get even more data than we gave through the SDN API. So with 2019, we have to make a decision on if we carry forward the SDN API or not. It has some usage with partners still. It's unclear if partners are still asking us to bring that forward to 2019. Certainly partners can do the thing that some of the partners have done, which is build effectively their own data dip through the MSPL managed app process. And that may actually be the thing that we move forward with the partner ecosystem on 2019. But what you can expect is, for on-prem, we'll still give some opportunity that gives you the broader data dip to our partners.
Well, and the second part of that is there any plans to expand there are current scenarios and stuff like that in the CQD online, online, that are not a part of the scenarios that are in the CQD on-prem.
Yeah.
Is there any plans to bring any of those down into the on-prem version, or is it going to stay currently in the cloud?
Yeah, so for CQD on-premise, we will likely do a refresh after release. We want to see how many people can get to online, and then we'll look at a future on-prem refresh as an option to invest in. Having said that, William Looney and Troy Funk are giving a talk on call analytics in CQD right after this session in, I think, Hall 4. So that could be a place to ask the actual experts and owners. Thank you.
The right here.
Yeah, I just want to clarify your response about the survival branch appliances and the survival branch servers, I'm assuming as well, that they're going to stay legacy 2015, there'll be some coexistence.
They will stay legacy, so yeah.
So is there going to be some mechanism for us to be able to move them between pools? Because we're talking about side-by-side migration, because obviously there's challenges today when we're rehoming those to a different pool.
Yeah, so the question is, survivable branch appliance, survivable branch server, will they stay the 2015 code base? They will. And then will there be options to help with things like migration and tools around that?
Because that's a big challenge today.
Yeah.
You have to move all the users off.
Yeah, that's something that I need to learn more about. We have our voice team curating and grooming the backlog around some of these secondary server roles in on-premise. So maybe that's an area that we can connect up on and look at. This is the type of thing I could add to the customer survey, and we could get more feedback from a broad audience and really make sure that that gets upvoted if it's a common pain point.
Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it sounds like if you want to give input, that survey is really be involved in that.
Yeah.
So on the right, Renee.
Hi. I have one question. When I have an enterprise customer today, the enterprise customer have a hybrid solution with online user and will upgrade it to enterprise voice. What will you said? Must the customer wait for hybrid 2019 or use the old CCE solution for that? When the customer have an APAC solution and an APAC have an on-prem server solution, while Microsoft have problems with an APAC Skype for Business Online. So, but the tenants are in Europe. So what would you say? Must the customer wait or must the customer include CCE and put off the on-prem pool in Hong Kong or APAC, China, whatever, and or use on the complete world on-prem pools like Skype for Business 2015?
All right, Matt, how much of that did you catch?
Sorry, I didn't catch it all.
Okay, I caught a little bit of it. So I think what I heard is
One job, Matt.
with Cloud Connector Edition and multiple regions of deployment, what's the story with hybrid? Do we need to wait? What's a good strategy for a multinational to think about cloud with Cloud Connector Edition and the whole Teams and Skype for Business announcements that are happening now? So this is a pretty broad question, but let me see if I can simplify some guidance, some deployment guidance for customers. The thing that we always recommend for customers that are multinational with cloud intent is to first pick one region where you get the most return on investment for moving to cloud and move that region to the cloud. And make sure that you have assets like Skype Operations Framework, Cloud Connector Edition if you don't have a full deployment in that region, to prepare your environment and those users in that region for the cloud. So that's number one, is pick the region of the greatest return, move that region to the cloud. Now, at that point, there's some branching decisions, right? One decision is use on-prem server to fill in rest of world in those other regions. The other decision, especially if you're focused on something like PSTN dialing and less meetings, but PSTN dialing, is to go ahead and move all of the users to the cloud or multiple regions of users to the cloud and pick up PSTN dialing, which is already optimized for multinational. So with PSTN dialing, we have things like regional breakout, media bypass. So that's a pretty good story, actually. And that story swings over to Teams as well. In terms of meetings is where we have the most complicated deployment with Skype for Business Online. We did release a feature called regionally hosted meetings, but that's still a whitelisted feature that requires really kind of escalation to get into at this point. We were going to make it broadly available. This is something that I announced at the last Ignite. But this big pivot towards Teams and a modern meeting experience that we want to deliver with Teams has meant that we needed to really put that program on pause for just the folks that absolutely couldn't live without it. So if you need regionally hosted meetings, use your account teams to help advocate for you. Typically, we're going to let enterprises in and in small numbers only for the next 6 months. But then we get to actually starting to deliver the thing we're going to start sharing in October in the Teams roadmap, which is a modern meetings experience. And that modern meetings experience has this notion of regionally hosted meetings built in. So I think that's one way you can understand the path forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Far left.
Hi again. Will there be a new Office Online server? Will there be a new Office Online edition server for the Office Online server for PowerPoint presentation?
I'm trying to hear the question. I'm not hearing it well. I apologize.
Will there also be a new Office Online Server Edition.
Will there be a new Office Online Server Edition? I don't have that information. I should know it, but I don't know that.
Yeah, hi. Can you say anything about changes to the licensing model for on-prem and service providers? And another question also, have you planned any, PowerShell commandlets or equivalent so that we can get rid of Zephyr util?
So the first question was around licensing and can I share details around licensing. We're not ready to announce licensing specifics. We will really finalize that right up until the point where we release the server. This is the pattern that we've used previously. We'll prep our sellers probably a quarter beforehand, so that's when they would be able to start sharing information with you. What I would expect is a same sort of tiered system and an emphasis on renewals with Microsoft 365 and having those Microsoft 365 renewals include an on-prem server option, right? So the pattern that our sellers will be pushing the most will be renew with Office 365 with Microsoft 365, and if you need the on-prem server upgrade, use that option as part of that renewal to get the upgrade. But I think we'll have some other options as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and then also we would like to have better PowerShell commands that we can run server side, so that we can control client settings. Well, Zephyr util works, but it's not the best solution.
So a vote for more PowerShell to manage clients. Yeah, thank you for that feedback. Yeah, we can look at doing more of that. We will do more of that. We have to do more of that around how the client works side by side with Teams. So that may be a place where we can reevaluate what we do all up. Thank you.
In the center here, Ken.
Okay, first question. Matt, what are you doing up there?
So do you want to take that or should I take that?
Why don't I let you take it?
So Matt is our guest blogger for this session. We are doing something kind of special at Ignite, and maybe you know this, Ken, maybe you don't, but we've invited a set of the MVPs to be blogging for each session as kind of a way to have a direct access with the speaker, to be able to get lots of time for their blogs. And for that reason, I wanted to make sure Matt also had a chance to be on stage and get to ask some of his own questions.
It was really a rhetorical question, but thanks.
You're welcome.
My real question is around monitoring or analytics. So if you're not going to be hybrid, or if the hybrid isn't providing you all the detail that you need, is there still going to be a way to get that call data into an on-prem database, monitoring database, SDN?
Yeah. So the story for 2019, if you don't have hybrid, is effectively the 2015 story with the asterisk around SDN. We may not carry forward SDN. We may look at partners to build native data dips instead of using SDN.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Yep.
All right, on the right here.
So hey, my question is pretty simple. So 3 things. They mentioned monitoring. Anything in the space of monitoring calls real time, as opposed to post call. 2, you mentioned standard edition going away in a director. Director I don't really care about, but standard edition, so it means you have to move to enterprise. Does that mean, maybe a better way to ask it. Have you guys made any improvements in the quorum space in that area? Because quorum bites, I'm pretty sure everyone could agree with me on that, bites in the butt at times. And then 3rd one, I think you mentioned something about regionalizing meetings, but I'm assuming that's more of where the organizer's account lives. I've heard in the past that you guys have it on the roadmap, or things are being worked out where you can use, I think it's called barbelling up in the cloud, so that, let's say I'm in the United States, I connect to a cloud instance of a meeting, and someone in Europe the same, but the meeting communication is done cloud to cloud, as opposed to a user from the United States connecting to Europe, and European user connecting to the States.
Okay, so 3 questions. Remind me of the first question.
Quorum?
Quorum. Okay, so quorum I think is not too hard. I mentioned earlier we are using for Server 2019 the online code as the basis of the next on-prem server release. With that, we've actually continued with the latest version of Fabric in online. So with that latest version of Fabric, there are a ton of improvements. In fact, that's how we've been able to scale up our online service in a way that has been problematic for on-premise, right? So a couple things will change. The first is with that newest version of Fabric, you can run, of course, an Enterprise Edition server with one front end. That's fine. You can run an Enterprise Edition server with 3 or more front ends, and we'll support up to 16 front ends. The only situation where you can't use a specific number of front ends is 2 front ends. With 2 front ends, we have a quorum problem. We're cutting that so we don't let customers hurt themselves with that deployment in 2019.
All right.
And we'll do some tuning around routing groups as well from what we've learned in online. Okay, so the next question, there was the barbelling question. What was the middle question?
Monitoring real time, in real time as opposed to
Yeah, so
post-call.
real-time monitoring, Troy and William, their session on call analytics in Hall 4. That's a great session for that. We're starting to get some more real-time analytics in online, and that may be something we can pull down to on-prem for with the hybrid config.
All right.
And then for barbelling, barbelling is, we're not doing like the old H323 classic barbelling model anywhere in the cloud. And we're certainly not doing it with Server on-prem 2019. There's some, you can use some mental models to think of equivalent scenarios. Like if you think about it, what we're doing in online is we are using servers that are close to users to bring you into our cloud and then backhaul media inside of our network to wherever the organizing MCU is. And in a way, that's a bit like a barbell situation. You still have 2 servers, they're bridging media, right? There's still one server that has the organizer, and there's maybe multiple different servers worldwide that are feeding in and aggregating and then backhauling media. So in that way, we have a scenario that kind of matches the business value of barbelling, but we're using a different implementation. I think the thing you care about is we just get your media close to where the user is into our cloud, and then we protect it and take care of it and optimize it inside of our cloud. So we're actually trying to relieve the burden of barbelling.
Users just uses the best path up in the cloud.
Yeah.
Because I know up in that area, you guys are like, well connected.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Thank you. And we're just down to 20 seconds. So let me thank Matt for being up here. Thank you for having me. And we have another server coming. So I'll stick around, and you're welcome to come talk to me after the session. Thank you.